And look at this tree with this amazing mango on it. This is a beautiful red mango. Wow. So we're going to talk about this tree here today at Tropical Acres with Alex. And this is a beautiful tree. I don't know. He's going to explain about the size, but that's a big mango and a beautiful colored mango. But here's Alex. And what tree is this?
So this is called Zill 80. And this is a mango that's been around for a few decades, but isn't very well known. Not widely propagated as far as I'm aware. And, not too many mango enthusiasts even know about it, actually. So as far as the history of it is concerned, this mango originated as a seedling on the old Zill property in Boynton Beach, Boynton Del Rey area. It is named not because it came from a breeding project, but because it fruited in the year 1980. In fact, the Zills kind of used to shorten it to just 80. They referred it as the 80 mango. And I think the speculation was that it was a Kent seedling. And the Zills typically didn't back then plant seeds specifically to achieve something. Usually they were volunteer seedlings they selected, but Walter or Gary could speak more to the history behind it. But pretty sure that Kent was one of the parents. It physically resembles Kent. The foliage resembles Kent, so at least one of the parents was Kent. It, like I said, fruited in the year 1980. And the Zills were excited enough about it that they actually did propagate it at the nursery for a little while. So this was like something that they kind of thought had potential to maybe become like an established mango, at least in South Florida. But it fell out of favor for probably a few reasons. And so they kind of stopped producing it after the 80s. I'm not sure how long into the 80s they made it, but I have on a few occasions seen examples of these planted in South Florida that were probably, grafted like 30-something years ago. But otherwise, they didn't really produce this tree in the 90s, 2000s. They still don't produce it, as a matter of fact. However, Gary Zill was, I suppose, impressed enough with its flavor that he used it in his breeding program. So he planted seedlings of the Zill 80 mango, and some of the progeny became selections of his. And we now know those mangoes as varieties such as the Fruit Punch. The famous Fruit Punch mango is a seedling of this mango. The Carla is from this mango. There's a few others like Edgar, which the name is kind of a misnomer. Most likely was a seedling of the Zill 80. C17. There's a number of other ones that came out of that, actually. Many of them still have numbers on them, but that were from this mango. And as far as its flavor is concerned, it is what we call a classic subacid flavor. So it's a classic flavored mango, but with a very strong subacid component. And it's very much kind of an intense flavor, and not everybody loves it, but a lot of people do. Anybody that's a fan of the Fruit Punch mango that's tried it should enjoy Zill 80. As far as its drawbacks are concerned, it has a kind of odd ripening trait. And so this is talking about mangoes that really shouldn't be allowed to tree ripen. This is one of them. Tree ripened Zill 80s tend to ripen unevenly. Really common if you let one of these things ripen on the tree, you cut it open and the bottom is already too ripe, and parts of it might not be completely ripe yet. So the best way to ripen this fruit is to pick it while it's still green, if you will, even though it turns red well before it's ready. So a little bit of a tricky mango to pick. You see this part of it is still quite green, and there's no yellow color break yet on this fruit. However, most likely we could pick this mango, and I'm not going to do it right now, but it would most likely ripen perfectly fine. I'll probably pick this at some point in the next couple of days, but it's one of those ones where you should not allow it to tree ripen. Now, the other issue it has is it's not really a heavy, well, I shouldn't say it's not a heavy producing tree, but it doesn't make a lot of fruit, and that's because the fruit are very large in part. So we never seem to get tons of fruit from these trees. We have two of them. but we get enough. So, and it's certainly enough probably for somebody that wanted to grow one in their yard. Maybe not a commercial yielding variety, but certainly one that produces enough that if somebody wanted to plant a tree in their yard and wanted a late season mango that had kind of unique flavor, it would be one to consider. So it hasn't been especially disease prone, but we do think that it's probably moderately prone to bacterial black spot. This year we haven't lost too many of them to it. So Cecil Brumfield grows it too, and he's reported losses that are in like the 10 to 20% range, which is not too bad to that disease. So perhaps it's manageable on this variety. It's not something that would necessarily prevent me from planting it. So anyway, it's a vigorous tree. This is not a small mango. It's bigger than the other trees that we planted around the same point in time. Paul, there's one behind you right here that also you could show. You can see it's larger than the rosy gold tree next to it that was planted at the same time. So a relatively vigorous tree with a kind of an open growth habit. Its canopy is not quite as dense as its parent, the Kent. But flavor, really, really good. I think it's one of the best late season varieties. I like it a lot more than a Kent or a Kit. I think I like it even a little more than Beverly, which is one of the best late season mangoes, and we'll probably do a video on Beverly at some point. There's only a few other late season mangoes that I like as much as I like Zill 80, or maybe slightly better, but it's one of these curiosities that's been kind of forgotten by history, and it's something that I think people could try out, and if more people tried the mango, they would probably be wanting to plant it or grow it, and probably more people would be talking about it. Now, it doesn't have the best name, it's a number, so it never really received a proper name, but it's a mango that I think was probably worthy of a proper name.
What name would you give it if you had to name it?
Oh, I have no idea. I let Gary Zill choose that because it's
from what you know about the taste of it, based on the taste of it, or the look of it, because it's a beautiful red one.
Yeah, it's a beautiful tree.
Well, if you found a mango like this, a seedling, what would you call it?
I have no idea. I think most likely I would be tempted to name it after a human being, like a person that was associated with it. But as far as like comparing it to another fruit, I'm not great at coming up with these creative marketing.
Well, it's so red. It's so red.
It is very red fruit.
And big. Big red.
Yeah, very large fruit.
Big red. That's a good name. Big red.
There's another one over here. This one.
So what are some popular mangoes you would compare the taste to? You said fruit punch.
Fruit punch is one of the closest. What else would I compare it to? Thinking out loud here. The Edgar, which I believe is from Zill 80, definitely there's some so. Other than that, like most classically flavored mangoes in Florida, you can detect some similarities between their flavor. But this, what I call the subacid group, is mostly these mangoes that are descended from Zill 80. And if I thought real long and hard about it, I could probably come up with some other examples.
How old is this tree?
This tree would have been planted in 2017. So this tree is now 5+ years old. So we've, the size isn't terrible for the age, but as you can see, it is more vigorous than the ones around it. So it will, in the long run, require probably a little extra pruning, and I think we can realistically keep this tree in the probably 12 to 15 foot range, and it will still be productive and happy, we hope.
You were about to say there's one other mango that comes to mind, maybe?
Oh, right, yeah. Thinking of classic subacid flavored mangoes. Oh, there's one that we call USDA Himsager. That's a classic subacid flavor. So that probably is in that same group. What else would fall into that? Well, I'd have to probably look at the list of stuff trying to come up with other examples.
Oh, it's a beautiful tree.
Some would say it's a subgroup, right? That it's a classic flavored mango that has a little more tang to it, but I think it's its own. It has its own flavor group that it belongs to. So definitely more of a subacid component than its parent, the Kent.
And how about since the late season mango, how popular is people buying this tree or the budwood from it?
Not very. I haven't gotten too many requests. I think I've probably only sold a couple trees over the last year or so, and mostly to collectors. Budwood, similarly, it's people that are, collecting different varieties, and it's just another variety to them. But I would love to see more people try it out, because we don't have enough examples of it in the wild, so to speak, to say, how it handles bacterial spot, or, how consistently productive is it. I suppose, the Zills, Gary and Walter, are going to be the authorities on it. Walter doesn't care for Zill 80. I know that for a fact, just doesn't love the flavor, but Gary liked it enough to actually use it.
Do they still have the original tree somewhere?
Probably not. It would have, well, I don't know. I shouldn't speak to that. They would be the ones to know. I know Gary saved some of the original stuff that they had over at the old nursery and brought it over to where his home is now. So some of that stuff, like the original Jakarta tree, is still over at his place. Wow. I think the original Gary tree is. So he has some of that original stuff.
Well, Cecil probably, his is probably one of the oldest ones around, right?
I'm not sure. I don't know when Lawrence moved into that house. It might have been in like the 80s or something. So, but yeah, he does have some of the older ones. He's got, I think, 2 of them. And I mean, they're not worse than, in terms of growth habit, than some of the other vigorous stuff that he has. And they do seem to produce relatively consistently for him. But like, it's a mango that I wish more homeowners were trying out to see how it did or whatever. And I don't think I know any homeowners growing this mango. It's basically the Zills and Cecil and me, and
wow.
There might, I think it's in the USDA's collection, but I can't think of anybody else off the top
Well,
of my
I love
head
fruit punch, and after that description you gave it, I'm scared to taste it, because if I liked it, I have no more room, and it's
right.
like,
Well,
wow.
So, okay, the thing about it is, I feel this mango, the Zill 80, is more consistent in its flavor than the fruit punch, because fruit punch we get, at times tasting like incredible, but a lot of times it tastes kind of average, and I've had other people tell me that too. This mango, in my experience, is kind of a winner every time. I won't claim that it's better than fruit punch, or even quite as good, but it's an excellent mango in its own right, in my opinion. And a lot of the people who have had the opportunity to try it, and there hasn't been so many of them, have had similar positive things to say about it. So we're still selling these. I only pick like a couple a week, but I mean, like, if I pick one of these. See, there's no sap running. It's completely stopped feeding. So this mango should ripen perfectly fine. It might take the better part of a week to ripen.
It's a big mango.
Maybe a little less. Yeah, this one's certainly well over a pound, probably closer to 2 pounds. Very large.
Wow.
Commercially speaking, that's not necessarily desirable. Kind of the sweet spot would be a pound and a half. When you get mangoes this large, people can get sticker shock, because, like, obviously it's going to cost a lot more than mangoes of smaller size. But it's shipped pretty well. We have shipped them a little bit too. It has made it into some of our late season shipping boxes. In prior weeks, we've stopped shipping at this point. So now these are going to be sold locally. We've had a few places that we post at night, and we'll do that with the rest of them, assuming that we don't eat too many of what's left. So.
All right, well, everybody, depending when you're going to be looking at the site, if these are in season, they have them, and they're in season right now as of the posting of this video. But the budwood and also the trees are always available here. Just contact...
Well, budwood until the end of this month.
Right? Yeah, when budwood's available
yeah.
on your website. So definitely contact Alex, and this is one, if you have room, definitely should be in your collection.
Yeah, thanks. I hope that other people will try it out. Maybe they'll plant a tree in their yard if they have space for one. So, yeah.
It's like bowling balls. They're so big, red bowling balls. All righty, thanks, Alex.
Thank you.